concerning your role as learner support in St. Charles College. First question I would like to ask you is about to describe like two main strategies in your duties that you have like used in which promote inclusivity in your classroom. Two main.
Yeah. One of the main strategies I use just to make sure that all the students are able to achieve their full potential in their learning would be visual strategies. That for me is probably the number one thing that I would use on a day-to-day basis, and that incorporates not only those students that are struggling, but it's also like for the students that have English as a second language. It also is for those students that maybe are a little bit younger, because if you've got a visual prompt there for them to refer back to, it just helps with their learning. So I use visual timetables so that the students know exactly what's happening during the day. And that's always incorporated also with the words, but if they've got a visual, that's so much easier to recognise than the writing, but both together. And if I'm giving them instructions, I always make sure that I will put something visual on the board for them so that they can remember and go back to it. It also helps me as a teacher because we talk a lot, sometimes too much. And so if I have a visual there, exactly, I sometimes will just have to tell that, I'll just point to the visual just to, so it saves me talking too much as well. So even if you have a worksheet or something like that you want them to do, I always make sure there's something that visual that they can refer back to, whether it even is a box to say, this is how much I want you to write, or, you know, if there's a picture, just so that they can, you know, they've got some understanding about the tasks that they're doing.
So it could be content space, for example, just to content how much like visual needs to. Sure.
So visual is one of the main strategies I use, and also I do a lot of peer talking, peer-to-peer talking. So, and that helps in the sort of the students that are on the lower ability and the students that are also on higher ability. They have an opportunity to come together and talk and exchange information, and they learn from each other. Like research says that as much as I can give them, they actually get a lot more from peers because they're on the same level and things like that. So I always incorporate something along the line of peer interaction and making sure they have an opportunity to talk about their learning with somebody else, you know, whether it is of a higher ability than them or a lower ability, just so they can exchange.
Did you have any troubles with parents, for example? Like sometimes you have comments from parents who do say, my child really is higher in like their education level than this child, so I would like my child to be with this child. So so how did you deal with this?
For me, it's also the other way around, because they don't want them to know that they're a lower ability. They don't want them to be labelled because they've got special needs. So I try not to use that sort of language with them anyway. But it's just about definitely educating the parents and letting them know that there are students that struggle, there are students that are higher achievers, and they both need different support and different help. But as a teacher, you know, we have to make sure that they're all moving forward and progressing in their learning. But yeah, so it's a matter of pretty much educating the parents, and that's just by just explaining to them what it is that we're trying to do, and that fundamentally, if you just let them know it's for the benefit of their child, they tend to be quite open to that. As long as you tell us it's about their child, then
And throughout your educational career, what progress have you seen like occurring in regards to integrating students with additional needs into the mainstream classroom? So it was like better now or before, or like what changes has been done?
Definitely, there's huge progress since I started, and I've started, and also I've started in England as well. So just different countries and their perspective of special needs and learning difficulties. when I started, there wasn't that many, and there's more and more now. In St. Charbel's in particular, I've definitely, the numbers have grown in regards to identifying those students, and that I think is a combination of just awareness, um, acceptance as well. I think that's a huge one. Just accepting that all students don't learn the same, and that there are students that might struggle, that might need additional help, and that there's a reason behind that. It's not like a lot of the reasons behind our students are the language difficulties, and it's not an ESL, it's not an Arabic, that's not the problem. It's they have fundamentally have got language, perspective that they struggle with. So the more you know about it, the better you can help them as a teacher. So if you understand that, okay, these students struggle with, following directions, and the reason why they do that is because they're not processing the language properly, then you can change your teaching to adapt to their needs by, say, for example, giving them visual cues, making sure the instructions are quite simple, getting them to feed back to you. Do you understand, what I've asked you to do? So that's been huge, the changes in the legal changes that are happening as well, especially with the Discrimination Disability Act. That's huge, and that's still continuing at this present, sort of like with the changes. Because basically, we have to cater for, that's our role. Our job is to cater for all students, whether they have got a disability or not. We have to accept that, and we have to change our teaching. And that's hard. It's hard, but it benefits the kids anyway. So so it's definitely been the huge progress in that. The Disability Discrimination Act also sort of, as we're sort of saying, integrating those students. Before, there definitely was, what's the word? They were, I've forgotten the word, sorry. They were isolated, like, so they were definitely separated. There was a lot of special needs schools that were catering for these students, and they were definitely them and the mainstream. Whereas now with the Discrimination Act, they have the right to come in and access. Research shows that it's better for them. It's better for our students, in the mainstream, to be exposed to those students. We learn from them, they learn from us.
This leads to my third question. Can you think about two ways that the mainstream educators and special needs educators for special learning can cooperate to promote inclusivity?
I definitely think educating the parents is a huge thing for us. We have to let them know that it's okay, they have rights. Because I tell my parents all the time that, if they sort of, because they're very hesitant about, special needs, and but I see, and they're worried that that they will get kicked out of the school, or they'll have to leave the school because of their students' disability. But I tell them, and I say that they have a right, they've got legal rights to be here, and if they choose for their student, for their child to be here, then legally they have the right. And they go, oh, okay, they're not aware of that. So it's definitely educating them on their rights as a parent, and their right for their student to access the school and the education that they need. So that's a big one. The other one is teachers and educating them and letting them know that if they have got a student struggling in their class, or any difficulties, that it's up to them to change and not the student.